And welcome into the show as we are here for week number 7 live with Friday Night Drive. We've got the scroll going. We've got you coming from games, and we've got finals coming in. Matt Rodewald, Steve Soucie with you for the next hour and a half together, and Souce will take us deep into the night. We already have some surprises tonight, and we have some storylines to talk about, and we've got a lot to get to and some recaps that we'll get from all of our Shaw local reporters from all over the state of Illinois. Brian Stone jumps in right away. We're watching this one. Geneva and Glenbard North. They're about under 10 minutes to go in the game in that one. Geneva just tied it. They did not get the extra point, and so that is a 13-all score in Carroll Stream. Just one of the, but that's not the headline in the Duquesne Conference tonight. Souce, what happened to St. Charles North right out of the gate?
Yeah, I'm not really sure, but Wheaton-Warrenville South came out quickly in that one, took control of that one, and just ran away and hid there. So ended up being a 33-7 victory for Wheaton-Warrenville South tonight. First loss of the season for St. Charles North, and in pretty convincing fashion. So I was not expecting that. I thought that maybe Wheaton-Warrenville South could play with them in that game, but to take them apart like they did, pretty impressive showing right there by Wheaton-Warrenville South.
Yeah, we had a lot of games just go final in the last couple of minutes on this first cool Friday night that we feel like fall all across Illinois. We talked about the weather and the last couple of weeks and the temperatures being up and how that would affect points coming into this week. I have not seen a ton of points that are what I would say out of the ordinary or offensive shootouts just yet. And again, we're just grazing the surface here. And we'll go through some of the finals here as we get going as well. But have you noticed anything just off the cuff, looking around with what you're seeing around the state?
Still a bunch of points tonight.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a lot of 30s, 40s, 50s showing up already in the early finals, and that's only in a small handful of games. So
all right.
The offense is not slowing down. So there we go.
We will get through those and some of the scores that we have coming in. We will have some highlights here for you momentarily, and as we mentioned, some reports from around the state of Illinois. Some of the ones we can get through real quick. El Paso Gridley downstate over Eureka 40-0, the final. You were at Herscher and Reed Custer tonight. They're in overtime right now, tied at 13. What did you take away from what you saw, at least for the part you were there?
Lots of trips to the red zone with not a lot of points. I left at halftime. It was a 7-0 football game. Both teams had ample opportunities to put more points on the board than that. Obviously, those missed opportunities have led to an overtime frame. So it looked on the surface, like I said, it was 7-0 when I left at halftime. Two pretty evenly matched teams, and that's what you'd kind of expect from a team that entered with 4-2, and the other team entered at 3-3.
All right, so we'll keep an eye on Herscher and Reed Custer tonight as those two are tangling, and again, still in overtime. What are some of the other storylines that you've seen so far? We're looking at Barrington with a lead on Fremd. That's a game that we've been keeping an eye on as the Vikings try to close it within a score with about 10 minutes to go. So we'll keep an eye on that as well. What else has caught your eye so far this evening?
A lot of interesting results going on in the Southwest Prairie Conference right now. Minooka beating Oswego tonight 10-3 was a little bit of a surprise to me. Oswego East knocking Yorkville from the ranks of the undefeated with a 28-17 win. Last time I saw, Plainfield North had a 2-touchdown lead on Bolingbrook. So on paper, all three of those games may have gone the other way than what you would have expected. So, and then you go over to the Southwest Prairie East. I had saw a score earlier that led me to believe Plainfield East was leading Joliet West comfortably. Why is that interesting? Because it will cause chaos at the top of that conference, because it looked like Joliet West was in control of that. Now, if that result holds, it looks like we're going to have a three-way tie at the top of that conference, and then you start getting into points allowed and trying to break that tie, and there potentially could be two teams in there that might finish the season at 4-5, factoring into that tiebreak. So it gets really jumbled really fast.
Herscher just scored. They win it in overtime. Final 19-13 as they win in the first overtime. It looks like Reed Custer had the ball first. Herscher with some sweet unis tonight. They got a nice fit going. What exactly are they wearing tonight that you saw?
It is basically an American flag jersey when it really comes down to it. I talked to their coach before the game. It is their alternate jersey. It is one that I believe the team had some interest in designing those jerseys.
That's cool.
So they're planning on using them for senior night, but or homecoming, I think it was. But they got them in early, so they decided to take advantage of having them in early. They're very sharp looking. I like them a lot.
They're shaking hands right now, and what they look like, just that it's like across the shoulder pads. Yep. They got white pants, and then the black. Is it black or is it navy blue? Just because of the American flag, because they're a black and gold team, and it's hard to go in there and get a win. But yeah, they look pretty sweet. You can see the Reed Custer kids looking disappointed as they come away with a loss in overtime. So Herscher, an overtime winner in that one. Let's go back to the Southwest Prairie, because the results you mentioned, they are going to shake up the brackets for sure. Just off the top of your head, what does this do?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to move a lot of seeds around to begin with. Then you start to have to reevaluate some of those teams that maybe had slipped out. It kind of looked like Minooka was maybe on the outside looking in. Now they look like they're back into that mix. Plainfield North, I have to do a little bit more analyzing after that potential win over Bolingbrook.
Right.
If that ends up coming through. So, you know, it went from a situation where honestly I thought that there were maybe 3 playoff teams in that conference. Now I'm looking at it and I'm like, wait a minute. I mean, there's a way to unlock this in a very strange way where maybe, and this sounds crazy to think about, maybe all of them are going. I mean, it could happen. I mean, yep. Mathematically, there's a possibility that it could happen. So that's really crazy to kind of think about. But then you look at the other side, like I said, looking at a potential 3-way tiebreak there, maybe even a 4-way tiebreak if Romeoville can get themselves back into that mix. So yeah, just kind of a chaotic situation there. On top. The
only close game that I've noticed right now, and unless you're looking at something I don't see, and I'm still trying to, you and I are both just digging through games to see where they are. Geneva Glenbard North tied at 13 with 6.5 minutes to go. So that's the one I've got my eye on for the final there. Let's show some highlights about what we saw around Week 7, Friday Night Drive across the state of Illinois.
The greatest show on turf. It's time to put the hammer down. Here from your 2025 varsity football tournament.
Second and goal at the 4. Jet motion to the right, and they get it straight ahead instead. That's a touchdown. Who's your man?
Head off to number 32, Grant Dose.
Now Grant goes in motion, play action fake. Latimer throws it over the middle. He got a target touchdown.
Latimer's pass complete to number 13, Devon Grant. For the Bronx touchdown.
He's going to set the new DeKalb school receiving yards record. A 25-yard touchdown and somersault into the end zone.
Stewart on the carry goes in for.
Fight is tied up. And a 10-yard run by Casey Etheridge.
And they fake the blitz once again. Straight drop, throw over the middle. Here's his man! 20, 15, 5 touchdown!
Alice Johnson pass complete.
He literally wasn't at the end of the game.
It's a whips winner for Hampshire. How about that, beating McHenry? That was a heck of a game. I had that on in the car a little bit as I was bouncing back and forth tonight. How about that?
Yeah, that was one that I was keeping an eye on. I noticed it was close all the way through, so a nice little win there for Hampshire to get themselves on the board. I think that's win number 2 for them this year.
I think it's win 2 for them, yeah. But the question I have with McHenry, Dundee Crown, anybody want that 5th slot in the league? Anyone want to go to the postseason? Because the Huntley Red Raiders went down tonight to Central and the Rockets. So, that league is just that when you look at the fixed conferences, when you get the jumble in the back, it makes it a little tricky. Someone's going to lose a bid and give it to some other conference.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we were talking about earlier this week about how lot conferences work sometimes. Right now, on paper, it looks like we might have a jumble of teams that finish at 4 and 5, and no one at 5 and 4.
And so you saw also in the highlights Owen Lansu that was in there for Downers Grove North. He's back, and so that makes them a very different football team. Obviously, we know it changes just because of the talent that he has a quarterback, but what does that do for everybody else?
Well, the interesting thing about that was Josh Welge sent me a text message before that game started tonight. He goes, looks like Lansu's going to play. About 10 minutes later, he says, Lansu is really slinging it. So, and then I saw it in some of those highlights. Yes, he came back with a vengeance tonight, it appears. I haven't seen a final on that game. I know they were leading that game in the early third quarter. That's the last I saw of it. But it looks like he was putting up a good night, and that's a big deal for them to get him back and get him in a situation where they might be able to potentially run the table and get themselves in a pretty decent seed position with him back in the fold. When before it looked like, well, maybe they won't be able to do that. Maybe we're talking about a 6-3 team, with a much lower seed, even if they do get him back. And that would be a lot more challenging. But getting him back is a big deal.
Getting him back with 3 full weeks of game time action to play makes a big difference. By the way, Geneva just had to give the ball up with about 4.5 to go. 13 alls. They flipped the field up at Carroll Stream. Some of the games you're watching, anything going final, catching your eye at the moment?
No, right now I'm just kind of watching some games. I was interested. This one has gotten completely out of hand. Early on, Central Catholic and St. Joe Ogden was fairly close. Matthew Brady, Central Catholic's talented quarterback, was actually on the sideline tonight in a hand cast of some sort. So he didn't even play. But now Central Catholic is leading that game 60-28 late in the fourth quarter. I'm watching that one wind down now. And I've also got the Lincoln Way East Homewood Flossmoor game up, but that one is not particularly close either. So
tell you what, why don't you keep an eye on a couple of those games for a few minutes? I'm going to run through some scores that we have come in because we got a lot for you here. Let's start with Elgin, a winner over Streamwood tonight, 25-6. Bolingbrook, a winner over Plainfield North. That's the score I have at Plainfield North. The final of 28-14. We want to make sure we double check that for sure because you had said something different, but that's what I'm looking at right now. Marengo, as you see on the screen from Grant, thanks to Grant as always, a rolling victory over Harvard. No surprise there, but that means Marengo and Richmond Burton coming up next week up in Richmond at RB. Naperville North went over Nequa Valley tonight, 29-23. That was at Nequa. South Elgin over Bartlett, also on the road, a 55-19 winner. Nazareth, no problem with De La Salle, 43-0. We saw the Hampshire winner, Cary Grove, 56-13 over Crystal Lake South. Jacobs over Dundee Crown, but it was not close. Jacobs 53-18, the final in that one. West Aurora got a forfeit win tonight. Larkin apparently dealing with either injuries, not enough bodies, what have you, but it was a West Aurora forfeit victory this evening. Notice that came in very, very late in the day. Did I miss that throughout the day, or is that something that's been talked about the last couple of days?
That actually came out yesterday.
Okay, I missed that entirely.
Yeah.
Aurora Central Catholic, another win, and they take out Living Word Lutheran. That's out of Jackson, Wisconsin. Not really familiar with where that is, but they've had a very big out-of-state schedule, but they keep rolling through it. So we really don't know how good or what competitive level of play the Chargers can play, but I believe they've gotten themselves into the dance by doing so tonight. I think they get to 6-1 by doing so, getting that win this evening. Moline got a forfeit win tonight too. Go ahead.
They've got 5 Wisconsin schools on their schedule, and they're not necessarily the strongest Wisconsin schools. So like you said, really hard to get a gauge on where they are, but they are going to be in the playoff fields. Now it's a matter of how many games they win to finish out and how highly they will be seeded. So yeah, it'll definitely be a situation that we won't know until we get into playoffs, to be completely honest.
East St. Louis, no problem over Belleville East. No surprise there, 55-7. What else was it? We have and tell me about Moline and Allman. The story there. That's another forfeit victory that we saw come down today.
Yeah, this was a week, unfortunately, of quite a few of those. I believe I ended up coming up with 6 that were this week that just kind of came up out of nowhere. Not a great sign. Alleman is kind of a unique situation, kind of returned to the varsity fold this year after a couple of years off. Numbers were going to be a concern. I got to be honest, their situation was a rough one to begin with. They should not be in that conference. I know the rest of the teams are, kind of staunchly saying, well, what do we do? We'll be on an odd number. What are we supposed to do about this? But Alleman's a tiny program. They're playing 6, 7, 8A schools on a weekly basis.
It should be eight-man football, to be honest with you.
It just doesn't work. And I mean, it's unfortunate that this happened. Everybody that doesn't get the chance to play the 9 regular season football games because of something like this. But it's unfortunate for both sides. I mean, it's a situation that you're going to get somebody hurt. You got an element with 20, 22, 23 kids on it. You got a Moline program that's a 6, 7A playoff bound team. It's a mismatch to begin with. Safety issues are a big concern. If they didn't have enough guys to play or whatever it was, I can understand why they chose to do what they did.
And Soucie, this is a perfect example of the kind of issues you'll get to talk about when you join us in March at the scheduling open house. And that's, again, we're going to continue to hammer that away. We can figure out when you have forfeits like West Aurora and Moline, we got to find out when they happen so that we can get you together by the end of the weekend so you can actually play a football game. Prospect over Rolling Meadows in a wild one tonight, 35-32. I can't figure out that conference. The Mid-Suburban East this year is kind of like, it's kind of unknown. It feels very unknown. Hersey obviously has kind of led the charge the last few years. Prospect kind of balances things out. Rolling Meadows trying to work their way back.
Yeah, definitely an interesting situation. I was really interested to see how that game came out because you kind of couldn't get a really good read from the non-conference schedules there. And so now we got into the mix. I expected that to be a pretty interesting game, and it looked like it was.
Geneva has the ball back now, still tied at 13. They're coming right at the 3-minute mark, trying to flip the field and get to the other side. And I believe they just threw they called an incomplete pass. And so that would have given Glenbard North the football right around their own 45-yard line. They call it incomplete. So running through scores as we continue on here. Going through Western Illinois, we sort of talked about the Western Big Six. Quincy 42-22 over Galesburg tonight, the final there. Let's go all the way downstate, talk about Calhoun over Carrollton. A Calhoun team's been quiet. They've been good. 41-0 over Carrollton tonight. We saw Carrollton a couple years ago. They've obviously cratered a little bit, but Calhoun's still pretty good.
Yeah, we had a conversation about them briefly. We were talking about the quality defenses in the state. Not at all surprised to see that they threw another shutout tonight.
Yep.
That is a team that over the last couple of years just does not give up a lot of points. So the only thing that I wish we had this year was a crossover game in conference between them and Camp Point Central. We're not getting that. I wish we did. That's one of those. That's one of those I wish we had that game scheduled.
And the Central Panthers 46-3 over Route tonight. Farmington another win too, 63-12 over Rova, and Kewanee Wethersfield over Princeville. That was a 17-14 final score. Rock Ridge, also out by the Quad Cities, taking out Mercer County 61-24. Abingdon Avon 31-26 over Havana tonight. A little closer to Chicago here. Shepherd over Argo 48 to nothing. Centennial came up to Thornridge, got a 40-17 win, so that's going to be a fun bus ride back for them. If they're watching us on the old YouTube, appreciate it. Eisenhower over Evergreen Park tonight. You've been keeping an eye on Eisenhower a little bit, I believe. 40-6, the final score over the Mustangs. Crete Monee, no problem with Rich Township, a 35-0 shutout. Oak Forest over got a win as well, 49-8. Johnston City going back downstate, 44-6 over Hamilton County. And again, scanning the scores and seeing what we have that might be new. DuQuoin a winner tonight, 48-13 over Anna Jonesboro. What do you got, Seuss?
Let's talk about that one that just popped up on the screen there, courtesy of Michael. Thanks for that, by the way. Yeah, Olympia with a 50-36 win over
goes down tonight. Go ahead.
Yeah, and that's one of those teams that, I mean, they were trying to go to 7-0 tonight, that very limited list. We've had some fall. This one is a pretty big surprise to me. Olympia has had some good seasons recently. They look like they were a little down from some of their earlier results this year. But obviously coming back here and putting up huge amount of points against Monroe Forsyth, the team that is one of the leaders in points scored this year. So, that's basically that game is a huge surprise to me. Of the surprises we got, that would be very, very high on the list for tonight.
How does that shake up the brackets just off the top of your head?
Well, with 2A, you're looking at a situation right now. It depends on where the line is geographically. All the undefeated teams now look like they're going to be on the north side of the bracket, depending on where Westville falls, north or south.
Right.
Was the last holdout, the clear south side of teams that were going to finish undefeated. So there's going to be a lot of undefeated teams, I think, in 2A, but a lot of them are going to be on the north side of the bracket, and they're hardly getting any of them on the.
All right, so
that's what the immediate.
All right, Seuss, thank you very much. We've got a couple of recaps we want to get to here momentarily as well. I just wanted to mention that Glenbard North now has the ball, under 2.5 to go. They've got themselves on a 2nd and 2 at their own 44-yard line. Don't know the kicking situation really for either team at this point, but the reason we're interested in this one, Seuss, because Glenbard North comes in at 4-2, very quiet, although we've heard some noise the last couple of weeks. Geneva at 3-3 here. We had expected them to either get to 6-3, no problem, but maybe not a 5-4, but this is a dangerous opportunity for the Vikings. They need to figure out a way to get a win. Otherwise, we're looking at brackets that are all over the place, pretty much across the board. And if you are on the schedules of either one of these teams, you are paying attention tonight for that extra playoff point.
Well, right now, I look at it from the logistical part of it. If Glenbard North can win this football game, they're what I'm calling a bid stealer right now, because I do not have them all in that bid because of the way that their schedule finishes. But at 5 wins, they're in. It's the end of discussion. I mean, they are in. Their point situation is fine. So as a 5-win team minimum at this point, they're in the field. So I got to start thinking about, well, who comes out in that situation. So definitely an interesting outcome there if Glenbard North ends up winning that football game.
Long pass went incomplete. That would have put them inside the red zone. About 1:23 to go in that one. We'll keep an eye on that. Let's do a recap real quick and check in with J.D. Petalty, who was Marquette and Elmwood Brimfield tonight. It was a blowout, but Marquette, we've been paying attention to them to see what they can do and get themselves in a proper seed. J.D. Petalty with more.
J.T. Petalty here down in Elmwood, where Marquette defeated host Elmwood Brimfield 51-6 in a matchup of 3-3 teams. Grant Dose runs for 4 touchdowns. And over the last 5 minutes, took a headset and called defense for the Crusaders. He did a bit of everything. Marquette 4-3 on the door of the playoffs.
So 4-3 and getting themselves into position. Conant also a winner. I believe it's a Conant winner over Schaumburg. Is that right? 43-28. Yeah. That's an upset. A bit of a surprise. We expected that to go the other way.
Yeah, I did, and that was one of those where I thought it was close enough where I thought it was going to be interesting. It also kind of maybe reshuffles that pecking order a little bit in that conference, the way that I perceived it heading into the evening. So I think that's probably really going to hurt Schaumburg. I think they're probably going to be off the projection now.
Yep.
So, I mean, that was one of the things that I noted there. They were one of these teams that I've been looking at for a while as a potential 4 and 5 point team. I don't know if they're going to get there now.
Big play coming up for Glenbard North. It's 3rd and 9 from about their own 48-yard line. The clock had stopped a couple times, and they're going to call a pass interference on Geneva. Had that play had followed through without the penalty, they would have gotten the ball back on a punt, and now this flips the field the other way. Let's see if they're talking about it, and let's see if it is. They're going to call pass interference, and there was a lot of contact on the backside shoulder in this play, but that's a 15-yard penalty. This is a massive penalty for the game here. 1:13 to go. Glenbard North has moved within the 37-yard line of the Vikings, and so they are within striking distance. I can't figure out the timeout situation from what I'm looking at right now, but a fresh set of downs, and Glenbard North is in the driver's seat right now.
Yeah, that's like we've just been talking about, a situation that's very very interesting in the Duquesne. This has been one of those Duquesne nights. We talk about them all the time. Where you look at the matchups on paper and you're thinking to yourself, well, probably won't be a lot of really interesting games tonight. And then when we're done talking about it at the end of the evening, we've been focusing on like 3 of the 4 games in the league. So I mean, that's kind of what this league does. It always feels like we have multiple competitive games every week in this league. This week's schedule, to be honest with you, heading into it, didn't look like it was going to be that way. Proved me wrong on that one, that's for sure.
Glenbard North with a massive gashing run of about 20 yards. They are inside the red zone now, 1:06 to go, and they are setting themselves up for a potential field goal for the game winner. Let's take a timeout we can. Springfield High going down to SHG. That's a 56-33. Hard to read with SHG with where they are exactly, if they are what we saw vintage SHG or if they're just really good SHG. Either way, they're winning football games, so keep an eye on that. Glenbard North now inside the 15-yard line, clock running under 40 seconds. We'll get a final for you more than likely when we come back. Take a timeout and come back. Week 7 live with Friday Night Drive right here on Shaw Local.
SGKR Injury Attorneys tackles the toughest cases. I'm Matt Rundio. When life throws a flag, we go on offense to protect your rights. Don't get sidelined. Score a touchdown with SGKR. Visit us at sgkr.law.
At Oliver's, we are proud to serve our community. We serve up great customer service, quality products, ease of shopping, and we serve up delicious barbecued sandwiches at our fundraiser cookouts. So stop by Oliver's, 748 North Brenton and Dixon, and help fund our local clubs and events.
In Illinois and into Iowa, the story of Shaw Media is a story of trust. Since 1851, we've been informing, connecting, and reflecting the communities we serve, large and small, rural and urban, suburban, and river towns alike, with dozens of local newspapers, radio stations, magazines, and specialty brands like Friday Night Drive and Starve Rock Country. We meet people wherever they are. We shine a light on local government. We celebrate Friday night touchdowns. We tell the stories that shape your day, from neighborhood heroes to the Chicago Bears. But what truly sets us apart? It's our people. The award-winning journalists, broadcasters, and storytellers who live here, work here, and care deeply about what matters most to you. We don't just report the news. We're part of the fabric of the places we serve, from the Mississippi to the Illinois, from the Fox all the way to the chain of lakes. Trusted for generations, still earning it every day. Shaw Media, your most trusted local source.
We are back, week 7 here, Friday Night Drive, as we are watching the scores come in. How about this score that crosses the screen right now? Providence over Loyola, 21-20. You had talked about Providence the last couple of weeks. Let's hear you throw some flowers in the Celtics direction.
You know, I'm not going to say that I thought that this was going to happen, because that wouldn't be true. I did think that this was a game that Providence could potentially be competitive in. It's basically a group of guys that has been gaining experience, gaining confidence, and I think ever since that Carmel win, they've been putting together some nice things. They've been doing some good things and starting to believe that this could happen. You know, I like I said, wouldn't have pegged this one, but the one thing that you do kind of have to realize about Loyola this year, it's a pretty young core. And, you know, the consistency that you're used to from Loyola still hasn't quite been developed. I think this is going to ultimately be a pretty good football team at the end of things. But this creates an interesting situation now that we start thinking about this. All right, they've lost to Brother Rice. They've now lost to Providence. They still have a game with Mount Carmel left on their schedule in Week 9. They did not have a Week 2 game. So if they lose that Mount Carmel game, they're essentially a 5-4 football team for playoff consideration, even though that won't be what their record is. So a 5-win Loyola team with average points because they did not have a Week 2 opponent. Now we're looking at the potential if they lose that Mount Carmel game in Week 9, we're looking at the potential that Loyola is going to end up on a 28-29 seed line. That's the reality of all this. I mean, that's when it really comes down to it. That's what that loss means.
Well, let me stop you here because I'm watching Geneva and Glenbard North. Glenbard North setting up for a 31-yard field goal with 2.4 to go. Everyone's used their timeouts, so here is the play. If Glenbard North can make this, they change the trajectory. The kick is up, it is clean, and it is good. And Geneva goes down to Glenbard North by a final of 16-13. And that is one of the shakeups tonight in the Duquesne Conference. Batavia survived 28-7 over Wheaton North, and they're looking around going, what in the world's happened to this league? Because St. Charles North went down. We're going to hear from more of them in just a minute. But Glenbard North, I would argue that's the biggest win for Glenbard North in 4 years at the very least. That program back on the radar. How about that?
Yeah, that's, it's something that you just looked at the rest of their schedule and you're thinking, it might come down to that Wheaton North game in Week 9. They took care of business tonight and said, nope, we're going to get it done right now. So, definitely a situation that I wasn't anticipating happening tonight. Thought it could happen in Week 9. It was going to be something that I thought we were going to have on what I like to call the radar board in Week 9, the games that were winner in, loser out, situations like that. But now Glenbard North has said, we're in. Because like I said before, their points are fine. As a 5-win team, that's not something that they're going to need to worry about. So this is effectively is a playoff berth-clinching victory tonight over an opponent that a lot of people probably didn't think that they were going to be able to get done.
Yep, maybe a changing of the guard in the league, and we saw that with Geneva and Glenbard North back in 2021. It was kind of a similar sequence where it was Geneva on the way up, Glenbard North on the way down. We could be seeing the exact reverse of that situation. And the reason this is only the second biggest story in the league is because of what happened to St. Charles North tonight, or rather what happened to them because of Wheaton-Warrenville South. The Tigers with a vintage performance, dominant 33-7 win. Joel Bennett was there tonight. He has the recap.
Joel Benz with Friday Night Drive. I am out here walking out of Red Grange Stadium, home of Wheaton-Warrenville South, where the Tigers just came away with a 33-7 victory over St. Charles North, ending the North Stars' undefeated season. And man, story of the game, Owen York. The running back went for 285 yards on the ground off of 40 carries and had 5 touchdowns in the game. It was a heck of a performance from the senior running back. I believe he's over 1,100 rushing yards on the season right now. And yeah, they just kept giving him the rock, and St. Charles North could not do anything with it. North Stars had their only touchdown come in the second quarter, with JT Padron finding Keaton Rinke for a 78-yard touchdown. They just couldn't get anything going after that. Wheaton-Warrenville South moves to 5-2 on the season. They move to the top of the Duquesne Conference standings with a 4-1 record. St. Charles North falls to 6-1 and 4-1 in conference play.
And it just shows that, it takes a while sometimes to go through these cycles, but this is one of the more balanced leagues that you will come across in the state of Illinois. Every now and then they kind of bite up a little bit. We're waiting for you, Lake Park. We're waiting for you, St. Charles East, but everyone else is always near the top, or at least going to bother you up and down the schedule. And for Wheaton South, they've been kind of in that middle ground for a while. Maybe they jump back to the top for the first time in a while.
Yeah, and you looked at it at the beginning of the year, and I heard good things about Wheaton-Warrenville South, and they've continually done a nice job. Non-conference season, they were competitive in some games that a couple years ago they would not have probably been competitive in. So it was a good sign for them, but this one tonight is one that, immediately when I saw it happening earlier tonight, raised the eyebrow, and I'm like, what's going on there? So, I mean, that's definitely an interesting situation that is developing in this league. But like you just said, you're starting to come to expect this from this league because it's just one of those situations where you're not. It's very unlikely that you're going to run through this league without taking at least one misstep. It's going to happen. That's the reality of the Duquesne right now.
I would argue, and you see Brian's comment there, is Geneva in danger of missing the playoffs? I think no, but it's one of those deals because they have to get by Wheaton North now, and I would expect them to rebound and rally here. But if they don't, that possibility suddenly, comes to fruition here. But if I'm the folks out in Rocket Hill and Central, I'm not happy with this result tonight because that screams Geneva first round matchup. If I'm looking at that right in Class 6A, and that's not favorable for anybody.
Yeah, that's now a situation where if you are trending towards a 2, 3, or a 4, yeah, Geneva looks like a very probable opponent with a 13. 14 type of seed at this point in time. That definitely looks like a scenario that could play out.
We'll keep an eye on that. Geneva has St. Charles East to go week 9, so we'll see what they do. Let's continue on the recap train here because Bishop McNamara, they only scored 29 points tonight, but Adam Tumino will tell you it's a victory, and they doubled up Wheaton Academy. Here's his recap.
This is Adam Tumino for Friday Night Drive at Wheaton Academy, where Bishop McNamara just picked up a 29-14 win, moved to 7-0 on the year, 5-0 in Chicagoland Christian Conference play. 2021 was the last time the Irish had even scored against Wheaton Academy. It took them 5 plays to get on the board tonight. 20 points in the first quarter, a hot start for the Irish. Micah Lee and Malachi Lee each had a rushing touchdown. Carter Crustinger added a 42-yard touchdown pass to Cohen DeMack in the first quarter and then ran for one later on in the game to help seal the win. DeMack with an interception in the fourth quarter as well to hold off Wheaton Academy on a long drive. Wheaton Academy looking ahead, it's got to win 2 more games to try to make a playoff push, and Bishop McNamara playing Hope Academy next week on the road, looking to try to seal up a conference title.
And that's a matchup we've been looking at, looking ahead and cheating on to see what we can figure out. I've seen some reporters talk about the fact that Hope Academy definitely passes the eye test. We got to start giving some votes, giving some attention here. But Bishop Mac, I thought this was good for them to kind of have the test they did tonight going into that game next week.
It's very strange that, I was waiting to try. I've been waiting for these proving ground games for Bishop McNamara. I think after tonight, I have to call it. I think Mac is the best team in that conference.
Yeah.
You look back a couple of weeks ago. Hope Academy beat Wheaton Academy. It came down to the wire. It ended up being a touchdown game in favor of Hope Academy. Just right now, it just looks like they are riding a wave of momentum. I've seen them live now twice. Really impressed with what they're able to do. I also think Hope Academy is a really good football team. So I think that's going to be a very interesting game between a pair of teams that are obviously both very talented. So going to get a rare, you don't get a lot of these. You're going to get a pair of 7-0s, it appears, provided Hope wins tonight, which I think they are. And so in week 8, that's going to be one to look for, no doubt.
Barrington has taken out Frem to final of 23-7. So we talked about the fact that Frem was trying to get it within a touchdown, not able to do that, and Barrington essentially able to run out the clock. How good is Barrington? We've been talking about Frem. This is a bit of an upset in terms of the attention that Frem had received all year in the battle of quarterbacks we've seen anytime Frem plays anybody. But Barrington's flown under the radar all year long. How good are they, and how kind of damage can they do here in 8A?
It was very interesting. This was a game that on paper that I fully expected to be 42-38.
Mm-hmm.
I was really kind of surprised that Barrington was able to kind of keep Fremd in check. All year long, I've been kind of a little bit concerned about Fremd's schedule. The quality of it heading into this, the teams that they played. Usually that's not a problem. Usually there's more than enough obstacles in divisional play for them to have multiple tests. But I just don't really feel like that schedule had it. I think this might have been the first time that they probably played a team that had the talent at their level or maybe surpassing it, and they didn't adjust to it very well. So I was really, but I'm really shocked to see From's offense not produce at least a little bit more tonight in this game.
We saw Hersey get a win tonight as well, and I'm going to try and hit the old refresh button for the screen. What are you watching right now that's of interest to you? Some of the games as we hit are close to 10:15 across the state of Illinois. Anything jumping out at you?
I've got all finals off my board right now, so
okay.
I don't have anything active at this point. So,
and St. Francis was able to shake off Marian Catholic just enough. That was a little tighter than we thought that would be for a while. What happened in that second? You watched the second half of that one. St. Francis trying to finally get their offense going a little bit.
Yeah, I didn't really see much of that. That was when I had like multi-screens up here going on. I was more surprised than anything else that was the struggle that it was. But I think Marian Catholic's playing a little bit better football right now too.
Yeah.
To give them a little bit of credit in this situation. Last couple of weeks they've done some good things. So so hanging in there. But St. Francis, they don't get a lot of breaks in the schedule, and maybe they were sneaking past. Looking a little past Marian Catholic.
I kind of wondered that too. That schedule is nasty for them, where they've been in the years past. So it's something else dealing with that in Wheaton nowadays.
Yep, absolutely.
And I'm watching one game, and in the final minute, it's all tough. It's 58 points, and no, Matter Day is not going to do the backdoor cover play. So that's how that's going to go. Let me ask you, Marian Catholic. They've got some better athletes. I saw them in week 9 a year ago. I kind of like what it's like. Okay, and I went up against a much bigger Rochelle team, and we're going to get to Rochelle's win in just a minute here. But they were thin on their bench in terms of their numbers, and I expected that. It's also week 9 attrition, and what you're going to get in week 9 when you know you're not making the playoffs, some kids are just going to do this. See ya. I'm good. That's enough. And you do get that. I hate to say that, but anyone who works in education understands that's part of the territory. But I felt like Marian looked like they had more of a base than they had in years past. And so for them to play football against a good team like St. Francis and hold their own, put 20 on the board tonight, that's impressive. And so hats off to the folks down there in Chicago Heights. Keep on going. I hope we get to see more of it for sure.
Yeah, and they're in a situation, at least right now, the way that the Catholic League is aligned, that in the division that they're in right now, that they can be competitive in that group that they're in. So they get a little bit of momentum going. Maybe they're one of those teams that makes a pretty dramatic step over the next year or two.
Let's listen in for another recap here, and we're going to talk about what happened out in Maple Park with Rochelle and Canelan here. But Joe Aguilar was at Richmond Burton and Woodstock North. Not a ton of offense, but Richmond Burton RB and the Rockets doing what they need to do, setting themselves up for a battle against Marengo next week. Here's his recap.
Hey everyone, Joe Aguilar on at Woodstock North High School tonight. A Kishwaukee River Conference showdown here. Richmond Burton beats the host Thunder from Woodstock North, the final of 21-0. A kind of a grinded out victory for Richmond Burton. The Rockets will take it. They improved to 7-0 overall, 5-0 in the KRC. They're the defending conference champs. The football game, not bad. It's just not the prettiest football game you'll ever see. Richmond Burton starts the game with a swift kick, which they recover. They turn it into points. They got 2 touchdown passes in the first half from the quarterback, Ray Hanneman, both to tight ends. The first one to Luke Robinson, that covered 29 yards, and the second one to Jace Nelson from 15 yards out. Riley Shea, the fullback, adds a 2-yard run in the third quarter. And then at the end, Woodstock North trying to break the shutout gets stopped at the 1-yard line as Richmond Burton preserves the shutout there. The birthday boy, Hunter Carley, celebrating number 17 tonight. He rushes for 95 yards on the ground for Richmond Burton, which kind of a grinded out victory. It's a pretty good football team here in Woodstock North, which saw its 3-game winning streak snapped. Final again, Richmond Burton wins it 21-0.
21-0 the final, and if you're the Rockets, and if you're the Rockets coaching staff, isn't there anything better than getting a stop to preserve the shutout the way they did there? That is awesome stuff right there. That is meatball, line coach wearing shorts, no matter the temperature kind of stuff right there.
Yeah, definitely. And I think this is a pretty solid win for Richmond Burton all around. I mean, Woodstock North, I think, is a pretty good team. Richmond Burton has already demonstrated on multiple occasions this season that they are good and are going to be a problem for the 3A North bracket. especially if they're able to run the table. They seem to have the inside track to a number 1 seed on the north side of the bracket right now, just based on their point situation and everybody else in that bracket. So if they can continue to roll along like they have been, and I don't have any reason to believe that they won't, they could be in real good shape in that 3A bracket.
I got a final from the Big 12, or at least downstate, with Peoria, Notre Dame, all over Bloomington tonight. 53 to 19 is the final I have. Just wanted to double check that to make sure that's correct. But good Lord, if that's the case, what happened to Bloomington and the Purple Raiders?
Yeah, maybe that previous week against Normal Community wounded them a little bit more than we thought.
All right, well, you keep an eye on that just to see if you can confirm the final for sure. And while you do that, I want to just share with you and everybody watching the experience I had out at Maple Park and Canelan tonight. Took my daughter out there because of the fact that it was an interesting game nearby. And the fact that, because I'm in Geneva, so it's about a 15-minute trip down the road. And Rochelle coming east this far just happened to fall in my lap with everything that they have dealt with at Rochelle in the last week. As I walked up to the stadium, I heard the Canelan PA announcer talk about the whole situation on the microphone, explained it to everybody, and I just thought it was handled wonderfully by the entire Canelan District 302 staff, knowing that this is probably going to be a very sensitive game for the Rochelle folks coming over to really see football for the first time since having to deal with real-life stuff. And with Dylan Manning. If you haven't followed the story, Dylan Manning is a junior running back for Rochelle who went down in a game late in the game last week against Morris, ended up collapsing on the sidelines after the game, had to be airlifted to Loyola Medical Center, emergency brain surgery to at least relieve some swelling and some bleeding. And it's been touch and go throughout the course of the week. And we've seen the updates. I know, Soucie, you've been seeing those. Our reporting from Josh Welge has been great. And the folks out at Rochelle, following them on social media, they have just been outstanding in terms of keeping you updated on everything. So I just wanted to see what the mood was going to be tonight. Everyone had T-shirts on that, and if you go to my social media, you'll see it. It's a Play Like Dill today. DYL, Dylan Manning. They had his number on the front. They were white T-shirts. There were purple T-shirts as well. The students all had purple T-shirts on. The cheerleaders had black T-shirts on. Everyone had all the gear out. There's a sticker on the helmet, which is wonderful. They also had armbands with the number 10 on it. So my hat's off to everybody at Rochelle for getting it done. But then I saw the Canelan dance team come over, Souce. And typically what you see at these games is the dance teams and the cheer teams, they come over, say hi, and they chat a little bit or something like that. But the Canelan dance team came over, and they had on their face, right about here, they had a number 10 on a sticker, number 10. And I want to just explain the kind of impression that makes on a 10-year-old girl like my daughter. She was just wowed by the whole thing. And understanding the scenario that, well, there's a serious injury that happened last week. Football is football, right? We enjoy the game, but it's also a game, and we also know how dangerous this is. Every single week, you never know how this is going to turn out. So the reality kind of set in, and I just want to say kudos to Rochelle. They were ready. They were focused. They were playing hard. They were playing football. And they were going toe-to-toe with a good Canelan team. Frankly, a better Canelan team that can pass the ball quite a bit. And they were able to sneak out with a win. And I can tell you, that had to have been very, very emotional. They looked all business going into halftime. I had to go after that just to get back here for the show. But it was all business. And, for the Souce, I got to just be very frank. The kind of poise that these 15, 16, 17-year-old kids have, I'm not sure I could have as a 45-year-old adult after witnessing a good friend go through that and then having to go play a football game a week later or even prepare over the course of the week. So I was just so impressed with the poise and the professionalism, so to speak, that Rochelle displayed tonight. Canelan played fine. They played great. Some mistakes, caught them late, like any other game you would see. But Rochelle got a win that they will remember for the rest of their lives tonight. It was one of those kinds of wins, and it was so impressive to watch.
I spend a lot of time during the week kind of like looking at games and trying to figure out what I think is going to happen. And, when I was going through those games and I came to this one, I sat there for a minute and I said, I don't know how they're going to do this.
I don't either.
I didn't. I'm like, I spend half of a lot of my time over these 9 weeks forecasting what I think is going to happen based on hard data and what I think is going to happen in past history and all these other things. I had no idea how to quantify this game. I just looked at it. I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen here. I just hope that they can manage to just get through this and to see them perform the way that they did. And ordinarily that probably wasn't a game that I would have put up on my big screen tonight, but I did. That was the game that I had up, and I was keeping an eye on it. And I mean nothing against Canelan here in this situation, but I usually am not rooting for teams. I just don't do that. I'll admit I was rooting for Rochelle tonight. I wanted to see them finish.
So was I. I was too.
I'm glad that they did. I mean nothing. I want to clarify again. I mean nothing against Canelan. I have nothing against their program, but tonight I just felt like it was bigger than this, and I wanted them to finish it with a win, and I'm glad that they did.
I love the Canelan people. I'm over there all the time. I deal with them quite a bit, both in this gig and also in my day-to-day job too, as well. So I think they're great. The administration's awesome and outstanding. So I just understood that the circumstances for which that, and this is Canelan's homecoming night on top of this, so they had to do the whole homecoming dance, and it's a little late in the season, but for homecomings. But so this is how it fell, and it was just one of those unique atmospheres, and you could tell that there was some trepidation on the Rochelle stands, just kind of. There were a couple injuries early too, and nothing, a little more conventional, so to speak. They had a kid go down with an ankle injury that you could tell was really impactful. And again, I don't have a whole ton of knowledge on Rochelle at the present day, but just watching them move and watching them work, the coaches had them prepared. Which I tell you what, as a teacher, that's outstanding. I mean, you guys at Rochelle did outstanding work to get those kids ready, and I just think that Canelan played fine, and it was a great atmosphere. The fog rolled in; it was a little creepy, but I spent a few moments on the Canelan sideline, and then daughter and I walked over to the other side, and we sort of did a little educating, and I was just kind of going, well, look at this sticker, and look at and just understand what all this means and stuff, and I just thought that was just kind of. It was fascinating to kind of point out, but also knowing that he's not clear yet. He's not out of the woods by any means, and so we're still thinking about him. The Manning family was out there for the ceremonial coin toss. Their older brothers were out there. They got a nice ovation. The Canelan fans did a great job in being very respectful and proper and all that stuff. I just thought, hats off to everyone. That is what high school football is all about. And that is the America that, and this is, I'm not saying, I don't want to blow it up too much, but that's the America you and I remember after, say, a 9/11 or what have you, when the first thing you do was high school football, because these communities come together. That was community coming together with another community to say, hey, we're here with you, we're here for you, and whatever you need, you just let us know. So, yes, and also a big win. So let's talk from a playoff standpoint in that. And give some flowers to Rochelle in terms of what this means, because we saw them, struggle against Lena Winslow a couple of weeks ago, who's very good, but also much smaller, and you figured Rochelle would have been good enough to take care of that. But what does this mean now? What does this do for a Canelan team that was rolling along a bit too? They've lost twice now.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I was kind of looking at this game, from a technical standpoint and saying, kind of think they might need this, because you look forward on their schedule, there's a pretty good Waterloo team waiting for Rochelle in week 9.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a pretty good team. I've had trouble kind of figuring out the Mississippi Valley and the Interstate 8 and who's going to do this against that, because it's two kind of different conferences. But Waterloo looks like they're pretty good. They had another big win tonight. I think they're good. So, I mean, I don't think it's a slam dunk that Rochelle was going to win those last 2 games of the season, but now they've got themselves sitting there, right now back at 4-3 after the win tonight. Ottawa next week looks like a winnable game for them. That's probably win number 5. So then they will go into that week 9 situation, not necessarily having to have that win over Waterloo now. It might have been a situation had they lost tonight where they needed a clean sweep just to get to 5. And like I said, not a guarantee. I think this Waterloo team is pretty good. Canelan, on the other hand, they've also got an interesting Week 9 game.
Yes,
with
they do.
So, that's this Interstate 8 conference with this Week 9 non-con game tends to throw everybody in upheaval. It's like, well, who do you have in Week 9? Because you don't have a conference opponent, and a lot of these schools are playing pretty good teams. I mean, Sycamore's got Cahokia. This is a Week 9 that
this is not good for you guys.
It's impossible to figure out because those schools are of somewhat similar size. Some of them are smaller.
Yeah,
different football teams than they see during the regular season. So watching a little bit of Cahokia on one of my screens tonight, the boys are flying all over the field. That is a fast football team. So I'm just saying. I mean, that's what we're kind of looking at here. So from a playoff perspective, this was pretty pivotal, especially for Rochelle. I mean, in the roundabout way of looking at things, that pretty much gets them in. I know they still got to beat Ottawa next week. I think they will. And if they do that, that's win number 5, so they're going to be in. So looking at it beforehand, you're thinking, well, maybe it's a little bit dicey here. But I think Rochelle is another one of those teams that pretty dramatically improved their situation in regards to getting into the field.
Refresh my memory in terms of Canelan. 6A or 5A? Where are they falling? Because last year I believe they went up to 6.
Canelan's pretty clearly a 5A. That enrollment number was one of the schools that changed pretty substantially.
That was
over
why.
the last couple of years. They're nowhere near the bubble. They're definitely a 5A.
I think they should be in 5A. So in terms of their enrollment and where they are competitively speaking. So and Ottawa and LaSalle Peru do not play each other again. They've only played each other twice. We don't get to see any more of that.
They've only played each other twice. They're no longer having a best of 3 series.
The best of 3 series, the 275th meeting between Ottawa and LaSalle Peru. We've got a couple of recaps we want to get to here. We're going to do that after the break. We're going to learn more about Fenwick, which we need to catch up with them. And also, I'm really intrigued with what Josh Welge is going to tell us about what happened with Downers Grove North and York tonight. This went back and forth quite a bit, a lot of points for sure. But is Downers Grove North the team that we saw at the beginning of the year? Are they back to being where they are in week number 7, as opposed to slipping in the back door of the postseason and saying, surprise, we're all healthy now? We'll see how that goes as well. Any scores that you're catching your eyes, you're now kind of processing this and it catch your eye before we go to a break, just some of the headlines that are hitting you right now.
Well, a small school score that I just got in, Leroy with a 14-12 win over Hayworth.
Yes.
That's a little bit surprising to me, to be honest with you. I felt like Leroy maybe was on a little bit of a downslide here, and Hayworth has been playing really well, especially defensively. Tonight they didn't get that done, so now Leroy has cracked the window open a little bit more to get back in the playoff field. I think before tonight it looked pretty bleak for them to try to make it. Now I think at least there's a path there for them at 4-3. Didn't think it would be there for them if they dropped to 3-4 tonight. So they finished with Tuscola. They got a tricky game with Boriston in week 8.
Yeah,
that's definitely now there's at least a path there for Leroy. I didn't think that path existed if they would have lost to Hayworth tonight.
I'm looking at a couple of 0-6 teams that got wins tonight. Waubonsie Valley gets off the schneid, 51-0 over Stag. How do you like being 0-6 and then just blowing somebody out and getting a? You know what that feels like? It feels like this. Oh, thank goodness we got a win. IVC, the Gray Ghosts. They got a win tonight over Rock Falls. Poor Rock Falls. The losing streak continues. But IVC got a win tonight. They were 0-6 going against 0-6. That is tough stuff right there. But IVC getting a win for the first time. And also West Chicago went down. Our guys, the Wildcats, WeGo, not going anywhere right now. 41-6, they lose to Glenbard East tonight as well. Upstate 8, good luck figuring that out, right?
Well, Riverside Brookfield went to 7-0 tonight, so that's one thing.
Go.
But yeah.
And let's see, just one more scan before we go to break here, just to see if there's anything shocking. Lake Zurich, a shutout win over Mundelein tonight. IC Catholic, 57-14 over Marmion. Antioch, a win over Grays Lake North, 49-8. Glenbard South over Ridgewood, 42-7. Carmel, a winner over DePaul Prep, 54-14. We mentioned Hersey earlier. Our Fenton Bison, big winner tonight over East Aurora, 33-6. And Aurora Christian, a win over Chicago Christian, 49-7. And those are the scores that should catch you up for now. We will get those recaps going momentarily and then see if there are any more losing streaks that have come to an end tonight. If there's a losing skid that's over, we got to know about that. Let us know in our last half hour. Steve Soucie, Matt Rodewald with you here. It is Week 7, live, Friday Night Drive here in Shaw Local.
SGKR Injury Attorneys tackles the toughest cases. I'm Matt Rundio. When life throws a flag, we go on offense to protect your rights. Don't get sidelined. Score a touchdown with SGKR. Visit us at sgkr.law.
At Oliver's, we are proud to serve our community. We serve up great customer service, quality products, ease of shopping, and we serve up delicious barbecued sandwiches at our fundraiser cookouts. So stop by Oliver's, 748 North Brenton and Dixon, and help fund our local clubs and events.
In Illinois and into Iowa, the story of Shaw Media is a story of trust. Since 1851, we've been informing, connecting, and reflecting the communities we serve, large and small, rural and urban, suburban, and river towns alike. With dozens of local newspapers, radio stations, magazines, and specialty brands like Friday Night Drive and Starve Rock Country, we meet people wherever they are. We shine a light on local government. We celebrate Friday night touchdowns. We tell the stories that shape your day, from neighborhood heroes to the Chicago Bears. But what truly sets us apart? It's our people. The award-winning journalists, broadcasters, and storytellers who live here, work here, and care deeply about what matters most to you. We don't just report the news. We're part of the fabric of the places we serve, from the Mississippi to the Illinois, from the Fox all the way to the chain of lakes. Trusted for generations, still earning it every day. Shaw Media, your most trusted local source.
All right, last half hour for us together here, and Soucie will go into the evening hours, the late night hours for sure. We got a couple of recaps to get you. How about some Mid-Illini scores first? Metamora over Limestone, 49-13. Pekin over Canton, 30-20. And Washington wins at Dunlop tonight, 23-15. The final there. That's a bit of a surprise. What say you, Mr. Soucie?
Yeah, that was one that I was noticing earlier. Washington took control of that one pretty easily early on, and then Dunlop kind of chipped back away at it and made it into a one-possession game there at the end. But, excuse me, tough, just kind of a situation where Washington just eked away. Washington, good, solid program, but I haven't been able to figure out that conference on a week-to-week basis pretty much all year, to be completely honest with you. I think I know where the division is, but as far as the individual games inside of that top four teams, no idea. I mean, from week to week, I know that there's going to be at least one final that comes out differently than I thought it was.
Transitive property does not apply to that conference. Can't figure it out. Just do this and throw dart and see where it lands for sure. Sterling Newman Catholic, 24-14 over Riverdale. Stockton, an easy winner over Eastland tonight, 46-8. Wilmington shuts out Streeter, 45-0. Pecatonica over Forreston, 34-20. And Stillman Valley over Oregon. Those are the Oregon Hawks, not the Oregon Ducks that my Indiana Hoosiers hopefully will beat tomorrow. Coal City over Peatone, 49-7. Seneca over St. Bede, 48-16. North Boone over Lutheran, 55-0. We mentioned Burton with the win. How about at the Nick 10? Hononegah winning at Boylan, 63-21 tonight. I mean, Hononegah and Boylan are in different categories, but you used to never see that over at Boylan for sure.
No, it has been one of those years where it's been all year long. It's been kind of re-educating myself that this isn't the Boylan that I'm used to this year.
Right.
They haven't really been able to get anything going, and it's actually caused me to reevaluate some early games in the season where I was like, "Oh, that's a nice win, got it over Boylan," and then I'm like, "Well, it's not as good a win as I thought." So that's really what it's come down to. It's not the best year for Boylan football, that's for sure.
Couple up north real quick. Libertyville over Zion. And you know what? We've been wondering about Zion. How competitive are they? 35-20. Not bad. Libertyville, that's a road win up at Zion, and Zion's a much improved team. Last one for you before we get the recaps. Elk Grove put 57 on Wheeling tonight. And, Elk Grove's been kind of that in-between program for a while now, ever since Osei left for sure. But 57 for the Grenadiers. How about that? Impressive there. All right, let's check in with Fenwick and the Friars. A win over Bennett tonight over at Triton College. Russ Hodges was there. He's got the recap.
Hey everybody, Russ Hodges with Shaw Media Friday Night Drive. I'm back at Triton College recapping tonight's Week 7 Chicago Catholic League game between Fenwick and Bennett. Fenwick, the number 4 team in 6A, coming away with a big 48-7 senior night win over the Bennett Red Wings. Bennett falling to 3-4 on the season. Fenwick improving to 6-1. The Friars clinch a automatic bid for the postseason. Here are the big stats tonight. Jamin Williams, the quarterback for Fenwick, 210 passing yards, 1 touchdown. And the brothers, Tommy and Jake Thies, 4 combined rushing touchdowns, 2 for each player. Jake Thies had a 67-yarder toward the end of the game to seal it for Fenwick. At the wide receiver position, Will Tomzak had 82 receiving yards. Raphael Stewart, 73 yards for the Friars. On the Bennett side, it was Joe Salvino, the running back, played his heart out tonight, 24 carries for 119 yards. It was tough sledding tonight. Fenwick had a couple of players leave the game with injuries. Everybody seems to be okay, nothing major. But a big win for Fenwick tonight again, 48-7 over the Bennett Red Wings. Friars moving to 6-1 and Bennett moving to 3-4 with 2 weeks left in the regular season. That's all for tonight. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at Russell J. Hodges for the latest in Chicago Catholic League football. And I'll have the full story from tonight's game online at shawlocal.com Friday Night Drive.
That's a pro report right there. Absolutely. Got to get the plug in for social media and also the website right there. See, that's what I'm talking about, guys. Well done. We can talk about Fenwick and make it easy at 6-1, but I'm more curious about Bennett because they're 3-4. I don't have their schedule in front of me. What is their path? Because we saw them in the postseason last year. Will we see them there again?
Problematic. Week 8 is Nazareth.
No, that's a no.
So,
but points. Let's talk about that.
Not that bad. So the Week 9 game for DePaul definitely becomes something that is on
a big one to come in through the back door. Do they have enough points to even be in the conversation at 4-5?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
Right now, looking at them roughly, they're in the mid-30s as of this moment, and that's a pretty good sign that they can probably get into the high 40s, which I think is roughly where that bubble is going to be. They will be right on that fence if they can get to 4-5.
Thanks to Dante for the compliment. Yes, we are doing a great job tonight. Actually, Soucie is doing a great job tonight. I'm reading scores and telling you things. Let's talk about our favorite, the Oaklawn Spartans. It didn't go well tonight. Let's just put it that way. 59-29 in the most hyped crosstown battle between Richards and Oaklawn in 20 years. How about that? You want to call it? You want to just throw a magic number out there?
Yeah, at least.
At least 20.
Yeah.
So Oaklawn's got some work to do. We knew that their schedule is problematic because 3 of their teams on their schedule are now 0-7. So let's just say that strength of schedule is not very strong at all. Remaining is Eisenhower, which becomes very interesting now next week. And then the week after that, a Revis team that surprises everyone at 5-2. I had no idea that Revis was 5-2.
Yeah, they've been one of those teams like I've talked about before in the South Suburban. You're either a team that's winning a lot of close games or you're a team that's losing a lot of close games. I think that's pretty much what is happening in that league right now. And it doesn't seem to be like one of them's doing – a couple of teams are doing a little bit on both sides of the ledger. It's either one or the other. Like I think Shepherd is one of those teams that's losing a lot of close games. Eisenhower is the only one that's actually been able to flip the script. They lost some close games early. Now they're winning close games. But the rest of that conference, it has been kind of a dogfight. Speaking of that conference, have you seen a Lamont Hillcrest score from tonight out of curiosity?
I have not. I will look for that and see if I can get that for you. While we're looking for that, how about we check in with Josh Welge, because Downers Grove North and York, we knew that would be a good game, but throw Owen Lansu healthy into the mix, and all of a sudden you got stories. Josh has the recaps.
Welge for Friday Night Drive with the final score at Downers Grove North High School. Downers Grove North 41, York 28. Story of the game, Minnesota recruit Owen Lansu, Downers Grove North senior quarterback. He was injured week 2, his left arm. He was still wearing a brace on the left arm. However, fortunately for him, he's a right-handed quarterback, and he came back, did not show any rust whatsoever from missing, 4 full games. He was 15 of 21 for 388 yards and 4 touchdowns. 3 of them went to Oliver Thulin, who had 8 catches for 195 yards. Downers Grove North 41-28 final. York, their starting quarterback, Dominic Alfano, he played very well, but he was injured on the last drive of the first half. He did not return, so that's something to watch going forward. York hosts Glenbard West next weekend. Again, the final score, Downers Grove North 41, York 28.
The final score in that one, of course, when did I have it? 33, no, 20, where was the score on that? I missed it. 41-28. Sorry, I'm getting lost with scores all over the place here. So, Owen Lansu's healthy. We've talked about this game quite a bit here, but just to put a recap on this, do they have the defense that can put them in position to make a serious run on top of the fact that they have an all-state quarterback with them?
I think it's one of those things where I think they can. For them, and I think it's going to be very interesting because the 7A bracket this week I thought was very, very strange. The projection that came out, I felt like it was one side of the bracket was a lot thicker than the other one. For me, it kind of depends on where it all kinds of ferrets out in terms of where those teams are at. For me, like the grand landscape of 7A right now is what side of the bracket is Brother Rice on in terms of, I think they're the favorite right now, but are you on the same side with them? Are you loaded up? Because like this week, like all the teams that I think had a legitimate chance of being, almost all the teams were all on the south side of the bracket. So they all jumbled.
With that said, who's the one team in the north that benefits from that? Maybe the team that you don't expect to win it, but like, boy, that path cleared up quickly. If you just look at this week.
The one thing that I noticed out of this week's was I thought that Lincoln Way West had a very favorable path with themselves deep. If that bracket were to hold, I would like their chances to make a very deep run.
That's what you got to look for when you look at these brackets week in and week out to see where these teams shuffle back and forth. I do have a Lamont score. Lamont a winner over Hillcrest tonight, 31-24, a touchdown win. So I don't have how that went down, trying to scour the interwebs to see if I can come up with that. Lamont now goes to Richards, and then they go to Oak Forest. So this is the Lamont's senior night as a result of this. Oak Forest is 7-0. They keep winning here. And they won tonight as well. I'm trying to get that final up as well. They took out the Braves, and they get Hillcrest next week. So it's an unkind schedule for Oak Forest the rest of the way here. But they have two teams that are sort of winless on the schedule as well. Oak Forest, are they any good? What do you make of what you've seen from Oak Forest? That's what we're trying to understand. And as we get deeper in the season, a 7-0 team we know is good, but how good are they?
Yeah, this is one of those very strange schedules that I don't think we're going to get real answers to that question until the next 2 weeks. That's just kind of the reality of it, because that's the way these schedules are. You mentioned the remaining schedule for Lamont. This is kind of exactly what I expected for Lamont too. The Week 8 game with Richards would be kind of a measuring stick to see how far they've come after starting 0-2, now 5-2. They've won 5 games in a row. So you look at that game as kind of the back end of the measuring stick. First part of the season didn't go the way they thought. You figured this would happen. It always happens for Lamont in the South Suburban Conference. So how do they do in these last 2 games with a resurgent Oak Forest in Week 9, and then you've got Richards in Week 8. So I think we're finally going to get a lot of answers in the South Suburban. I've been trying to figure them out all year long. Haven't been able to do it effectively.
Looking at what Oak Forest has done throughout the year, it's impressive to say the least. I thought the Marmion win would be bigger. It turned out it may not have been as the year has gone on. Similar to what you said earlier in the program, some of these wins you're trying to reevaluate over the course of the season. But here are the points: 41, 42, 42, 47, 43, 44, 49. They will get to 40 no matter what, or at least they have for the first 7 games. It's been fascinating to see how that they've been able to mix this up. Is there a 7-0 team that sort of caught your eye in a sense of like, wow, they've I can't believe they run through all this? I thought St. Charles North would get to 7-0, but they're not there.
Well, I'll be honest with you. Some of them, like this is going to seem weird to say, but I just put in a score for a team that went to 7-0. And if you would have told me after 7 weeks that this team would have been undefeated, it was more of a nod to their schedule than their ability level.
Okay.
Glenbard West. I just put in Glenbard West 44-20 win over Hinsdale Central. And the first thought that came to my mind was, not that I don't think that they're a talented football team, because I do, and I've seen them live, and I know they're good.
But it's that schedule.
Before the season, if you would have said me this schedule, in the non-con, the way that it was, Batavia followed by Joliet Catholic, and then the deep West Suburban Silver Conference, and now they've beaten 3 of those teams that we talked about at the beginning of the year. The only one they have left that they haven't beat yet is York, and they play them next week at York. So I think Glenbard West would be the answer to that question. Of the list of 7-0 teams that I know are 7-0 right now, that would be the one that is kind of like, wouldn't have bet on that at the beginning of the year.
Nope, it makes sense. So how you lay that out, I'm just going to look up and down at the 7-0 teams just to kind of get a feel for it. With Johnston City, they got to 7-0 tonight. Byron, no real surprise. Week 2 was their one question, and then they got through that hurdle and they've rolled the rest of the way. I don't have a Dupo score tonight. Do you have that?
I have not seen that. No.
Let's see if we can find that for you real quick, and then just going
up
and down.
That would be another answer too.
What's that? One more time.
That would be another answer. A 7-0 surprise Dupo would be one that I was not expecting heading into the year.
I want to say, and I do have it. Here it is. They scored with 1.4 seconds left. Chester's Trey Peters knocked away the 2-point conversion, so they lost 38-37 tonight. Both teams now 6-1. What a game down there, Dupo and Chester way down south there. Thanks to Daryl Kennard with the social media check in on that. So there you go. We were looking at them going 7-0, but denied late in that one. So yeah, social media lit up on that one for sure. And then again, that league, by the way, in the Cahokia, Illinois division here, both those teams atop the league. But that's not a game that would be a Week 9 game. We get that in Week 7 as a result. So that league seems to be, not really settled yet. Looking at the other side of there, you got Breeze Central, Columbia, and Freeburg all at 6-1 on the year. So there's some balance there for sure. Mount Carmel going to 7-0 tonight. I don't even know who they had this evening. That was one of those. They slipped off my radar entirely here, but they were able to take out Joliet Catholic tonight, 35-7. What does that mean for JCA now 2-5?
Yeah, a real problem, because we're talking next week. Looks like a pretty safe win.
Yep.
Over at LaSalle, but now we're talking about Week 9, and they've got Providence. So, and that is a team that is playing really, really good football right now. So, obviously Joliet Catholic has to get to 4-5 to get in the conversation. To do that, they are now 2-5. So they got to win out. They got to beat Providence in Week 9. I think they will win against De La Salle in Week 8. But boy, that's every week that has looked more and more challenging, that Week 9 game. And Providence right now, that is not a team that I would want to play with my playoff fortunes hanging in the balance.
And by the way, that Peoria Notre Dame score is correct. So Peoria Notre Dame at 5-2 on the year. And let's look at the 5-2 teams in the Big 12. You have Peoria Notre Dame. You got Bloomington. You've got Champaign Centennial that's 5-2 on the league for a year. So that's a mess up top. Not exactly something that you and I thought we'd see even 2 weeks ago when we had Normal and Bloomington raring up to play each other.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't look that way. One thing about Centennial, though, is they had a very, very backloaded schedule.
Yes, they do. Looking at it now, yep.
So yeah, but the other things, like, I didn't really see, I definitely didn't see that score tonight. Peoria Notre Dame beating Bloomington in the fashion that they did.
Right.
I felt like both of those teams are probably playoff teams, but I thought Bloomington was probably a little bit ahead of Peoria Notre Dame, the pecking order. Guess that wasn't correct.
Montini, I believe, they beat Viator tonight. That was the final of 43-3. We had not mentioned them, so they're now 7-0. They've got Ignatius and St. Lawrence the rest of the way. I believe St. Lawrence was doing a number on St. Pat's earlier. Is that correct? Did you get a final in that one?
It was at least 3 touchdowns. I did see that final. I don't remember the direct final, but the score that I just came across that I was keeping an eye on, because Andrew was leading Lincoln Way Central for most of this game. Lincoln Way Central ends up with a 28-21 win. Oof. So that was a little bit closer than I thought that one was. And Bradley picking up a 48-19 win over DeKalb, which was a game that was also a little bit closer than I expected. I was listening to that game on the radio coming back from Herscher tonight at halftime. That was a competitive game. Bradley ended up winning that 48-19. But here's another one from the Southwest Valley that raised my eyebrow a little bit. Not necessarily that they won, but the margin that they did it. Lockport with a 28-7 win over Sandburg tonight. So that's a really nice win for Lockport. It feels like every week they're playing, they're playing a pretty strong team. Lockport now at 4-3. At least has a position now to where they can maybe get to 6-3 now, which was something that I wasn't sure that they'd be able to do. So a nice win tonight for Lockport.
Yeah, Lockport's got Mattia and Nequa next on their schedule. They get Mattia coming to them, and they go to Naperville to play Nequa Valley the rest of the way. Sandburg all of a sudden looking a little different here. We saw them start 5-0. They've got Nequa next week, but then that Thursday game with Lincoln Way East, all of a sudden they're staring at 6-3 if they're not careful. They were looking at going into that undefeated. It's a very, very different story for that one after losing to Naperville North the other night. Naperville North getting a win. They've kind of quietly calmed down and got back to 4-3 on the year. The other aspect of this is Naperville Central. I'm stunned with what happened to them. They get beat again tonight. Mattia Valley gets them. They've dropped to 1-6 on the year after making the quarterfinals, or is it the semifinals last year when they lost to York in that safety game, so to speak, to end the game. I don't know what happened to them. What happened to Naperville Central this year?
Yeah, it was one of those situations where I think they graduated a whole bunch, and they just really apparently haven't been able to gel. That's really what it comes down to. And, they had a kind of a rough non-conference schedule to begin with against a couple of more experienced teams. And I don't think they've ever really got their footing quite right. So, this has definitely been something that over the course of the year I've had to kind of reevaluate them because you're used to them being, winning a lot of football games. That's just something that you're just kind of used to. So it has been an interesting season in kind of regarding how they're going to be. I did think that they would win tonight, so I am a little bit surprised that they did not do that.
I'm looking at the Southwest Valley Blue in the standings here. Obviously, you got Lincoln Way East way up top, and Sandburg still comfortably at 5-2, still in second place there. But then it's a jumbled mess because you have Lockport, Naperville North, you've got Homewood, Flossmoor, and Nequa Valley, as well as Mattia Valley, all either 3-4 or 4-3. How is that going to shake the whole brackets up? What depends on who comes out of there. Who comes out of there guaranteed in your minds the best case scenario to come out of that mess?
I think when it really comes down to it, I think right now, the only teams that I think are probably guaranteed to come out of the blue are East, Lockport, and Sandburg. And then for the rest, I don't know. I think that Homewood Flossmoor is going to run the table and get to 5-4, but I'm not confident of it. Like I said, I really don't know. But, it could potentially be a situation where, somebody like Nequa Valley is needing to beat Lockport in Week 9, and maybe they rise up. I don't know. Like I said, there are a lot of teams right there that I think could do it, but I think the math says right now in my mind, there are only 3 teams in that group that I think, and Naperville North has the problem of they've got Lincoln Way this week. So that potentially is their 4th loss. So they could go into a showdown game with rival Naperville Central, and Naperville
with
Central,
a chance for them to knock them out.
They can play spoiler with nothing to lose because with them being where they're at right now, they're not going. It's not going to happen. They won't. The only thing that could happen for them would be if we needed a bunch of 4 and 5 teams and they ran the table. That would be really the only thing. Yep. All
right, let's stay in the conference real quick with one more recap. Mason Schweizer was at Bradley Bourbonnais and DeKalb tonight. We saw a record tonight for DeKalb in terms of school history, and also Bradley Bourbonnais keeps scoring points. Here's the recap.
Mason Schweitzer here at Bradley Bourbonnais, where the Boilermakers have just wrapped up a 48-19 victory over DeKalb. This one was tight at halftime, just 21-19. The Boilers pull away, 21-13, excuse me. The Boilers pulled away down the stretch. Early on, Davon Grant, his first touchdown of the night, started the scoring. It was a 25-yarder that made him the school's all-time receiving yards leader. He also added a 79-yarder in the first half. And Isaac Allison ran for 2 first-half touchdowns for the Boilermakers, with Lizelle Edmonds' touchdown being the difference, 21-13 at the half. The Boilers' Byron Sumrall had an interception in the end zone near the end of the first half, And then the Boilers got a 37-yard touchdown to Rontez Smith on the third play of the third quarter. And end of the second quarter, start of the third is where the game really shifted. Ellis Johnson threw 4 touchdowns on the night, 2 of them to Lizelle Edmond, 1 to Kyron Edmond, and the 1 to Smith. Kyron and Lizelle Edmond both had 2 second-half touchdowns, a rushing and a receiving touchdown apiece. LeBron Carrington with a late touchdown for the Barbs, who sit at 2-5. Bradley Bourbonnais, after a loss at Lincoln Way Central last week, rebounds to move to 6-1. And that's the story from Barclay Memorial Stadium.
And they get Lincoln Way West next week, who's 6-0 right now because they play tomorrow. And then after that, an Andrew game the rest of the way. So that's your week 8 and 9 for them, both on the road. So senior night tonight, they'd like to be back at home for week 10. A good chance they will.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a good situation for them. You know, getting themselves right now at where they're at 6-1 seems pretty likely that they're probably going to at least get to 7 wins. So that will probably put them, you know, in the, you know, they're likely going to 6A. So I got to get used to saying that. But yes. I would say it's probably going to put them in a 5-6 seed type of situation in the South bracket in 6A.
We saw Nazareth in the south part of the bracket. We'll see other teams shuffle classes. I just, without even having done the brackets, you would imagine there's going to be a lot of shuffling this week based on what we saw in some of the results around some of the leagues, starting with the Duquesne.
Well, you know, when I looked at this week coming in, I knew that this was going to be probably what was going to happen because we had so many games in the state tonight featuring a 4-2 playing a 3-3, where the margins are pretty slim. So it's like the 3-3 could rise up, and if they do, it's going to shuffle the seeds. Like, and there were some situations where I projected the 3-3 team beating the 4-2 team, but there are others that they weren't. And I know I've seen quite a few of them tonight already that have popped up. That, you know, while I had both of these teams getting into the field, I did not have this team winning tonight, so it's probably going to move up. Or I had this team winning and they lost, they're going to move down. So I think there's going to be a lot. There may not be a lot of field changes this week. I think there's going to be a lot of seed changes this week.
We shall see when you sort it all out next week. You and I will talk next on Monday at 9 o'clock. You'll keep on going. But until then, some highlights from Week 7 live with Friday Night Drive here on Shaw Local.
The greatest show on turf. It's time to put the hammer down. Here from your 2025 varsity football Boilermakers.
Second and goal at the 4. Jet motion to the right, and they give it straight ahead instead. That's a touchdown.
Bishop Mack. Head off to number 32, Grant Dose.
Now Grant goes in motion, play action fake. Latimer throws it over the middle. He got it, target, touchdown.
Latimer's pass complete to number 13, Devon Grant. For the Bronx touchdown.
He's going to set the new DeKalb school receiving yards record. A 25-yard touchdown and somersault into the end zone.
The Tigers tie it up. On a 10-yard run by Casey Etheridge.
And they fake the blitz once again. Straight drop, throw over the middle. Here's his man! 20, 15, 5,
Alice Johnson pass complete.
He literally wasn't at the end of the game.
Hi there, guys. Had an interesting night in Week 7. A little bit more interesting than I thought we were going to have, but some interesting results. I was able to get a lot of the scores, at least around Chicagoland, put into the system. So might have another short night tonight because we had a lot of them come in. So start going through here in a minute. I'm finishing up a couple of things on my list, but I'm going to change over to the comments so I can see them as you guys come in. So I'm looking at some of the comments from the end here. I didn't see a lot of those during the broadcast because I'm putting a lot of things in, but I see the last question on there, Alex. See Bradley going 6A for the playoffs. Yeah, I think that's pretty close to almost locked in at this point in time. The Boilermakers have been 5 or 6 teams off the line for most of the season, so I'd be really surprised if that changed at this point in time. I haven't seen anything tonight that leads me to believe that there's going to be a substantial shift either. So that's definitely something that's going to be a little bit different. It's going to take me a little while to get used to that. I'm not used to Bradley being a 6A team, but that looks like the new reality, at least for the next year or two, in terms of where they're at enrollment-wise. So interesting, something to definitely keep an eye on. So I got all the Catholic League scores except for 19. Okay. Dante, I don't know that for sure yet. Let me take a better look at that. I think my gut tells me right now I think they're probably a 5A school, but they're somewhat close to the line. So right now I think it would be a 5. 5A for Springfield right now would be my gut. That may change tonight, but I think right now I think it's a 5A. See, did Naperville Central win or lose tonight? I'm not clear on that. I thought they won. And I saw it published as a win. So that's a good question. I don't have an answer right now at this moment. So, okay, so I got all the Catholic League scores put in. Now I'm going to do some public league checking. Over Spear, 24-6. Yeah, that's a heck of a back end of the schedule there, Dante. Rochester and then Glenwood. 5A playoffs would seem like a break. 624. Young beat Clark. 47-0. Okay, so just wrapping up some public league scores here, and then we'll start digging in with what we're missing from tonight. Phillips 13. That's what I thought. All right. Are you kidding me? Is that all? I think I might have all the public league scores. Nope, missing one. Okay. All right. So let's start at the top like we always do. I'm going to get a real quick count, see where we're at in terms of missing games. Yeah, that's not many. Missing about 80 games right now to start this evening, so we'll go conference by conference here. All right. Starting with the Apollo. Missing a couple scores here. They got to check somewhere first. Okay, Mount Zion over Effingham, 31-7. Okay, looking for Muhammad Seymour and Mattoon. Did Mateo win tonight, Midway Monster? Okay, Muhammad and Mattoon is our first missing score of the night. (28-21). That's the score that I saw. Okay, thank you. So that would make Naperville Central 2-5 on the season. Appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, also looking for North Boone and Rockford Lutheran. The two scores missing so far, Muhammad and Mattoon, North Boone and Rockford Lutheran. North Boone wins 55-0. I thought I heard that earlier, but I can't. Okay. So then we're going to Big 12. I wonder if I will have the scores done before the American League Division Series game is over. Just going into the 12th inning in the Mariners-Tigers game, by the way. Who wins the Duquesne? Good question. Yeah, I really need to get a fuller explanation on what happened with St. Charles North tonight, because I'm not necessarily shocked that they lost, but that margin, my goodness. Thanks, Levi. Yeah, I don't think that's crazy, Brian. I think Batavia probably would be where I'd put my chips if I had to bet on it. I know Matt mentioned it on the broadcast, but if anybody could find me an official Peoria Notre Dame Bloomington stream, I would appreciate it. I'm also looking for Richwoods and Urbana. So Peoria Notre Dame, Bloomington, Richwoods, Urbana. Thank you, sir. So 53.19. Okay, on to the Black Diamond. Will not resume. Okay. Was there a score on that, Levi? Oh boy. Okay. I'd hate to be somebody who needed that playoff point from that game. All right, looking for Christopher and White County from tonight. Christopher, I think they're going to go to the playoffs. Edwards County, Week 9. I think that's winnable for them. That would be win number 5. I think so. I think we'll look into it a little bit tonight. Okay, now I'm looking for Carlisle and Sparta. That is correct. Glenwood has been on the fence between 5 and 6. So if you see Springfield in 6A, Glenwood will be 2. That is the correct way to look at it. Okay. All right, looking for a Freeburg Wood River score. And then we're going to move all the way down to the Central State 8. $63-0 for Freeburg. Thank you, sir. Yeah, I noticed that, Levi. I'm only missing a couple of public league scores right now, Levi. So, I mean, Weather, I think that'll be good. It'll be a good thing to consider. Normal University wins over Decatur Eisenhower 55-12. Okay, I need a Rochester score from tonight against Decatur Mac. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Now I'm going over the Central State West. That's a Saturday game. Okay. So I need both a Jacksonville QND score and a Sacred Heart Griffin Springfield score. I know that Sacred Heart won, but I don't remember the score. So Quincy 20-0. $56-33. Okay. Now we're moving into Central Subleagues. Not a lot of those. I think I'm only missing one score there. Let's see if I can find it first. $56-0. Okay. So now we're through those and into the public league. Got a lot of these, but I'm missing a couple. All right, so one that I know I need is South Shore and Hyde Park. South Shore, Hyde Park. We'll add them to the list. So right now, the two games that I believe we can potentially get a final on that we don't have, Carlisle and Sparta, South Shore, and Hyde Park. Okay, and now I need Crane and Roe Clark, also out of the public league. Okay, so now we're going to move down a little bit farther here. Kingdom, Foxton, part of Central Illinois. I need a couple of these. Okay. So, looking for a Tri-Valley Tremont score. That was a lot closer than I thought it would be. Thank you, Levi. And I need a Fieldcrest Ridgeview score. And I need a Central A&M St. Teresa score. So the list is growing a little bit here. Carlisle Sparta, South Shore Hyde Park, Crane Row Clark, Fieldcrest Ridgeview, Central A&M, and St. Teresa. As I move to the Illini Prairie. St. Teresa 35-14. Thank you, sir. Okay. On to the Illini Prairie. Okay, I need a bunch from the Illini Prairie. Tolono, Unity, and Paxton. Prairie Central and Lantoul. Pontiac, Monticello. Okay. PCN's 46. Minnesota 27-6. I think Athens only had one loss coming into tonight. Okay, through those. On to the Independents. Yeah, I know that. I'm slipping. I know it's Athens. Collinsville versus Des Moines. Yes, another week off for Westmont, excuse me. Okay, Alton, Marquette, and Madison. Althoff and Breeze Materville. Excellent. Granite City and Granite City and Mount Vernon also. I need that. Okay. It's a Saturday game. Got all of those. Now we get on to Lincoln Prairie. Mount Vernon 62-6. Thank you. Boy, oh boy, missing a ton in the Lincoln Prairie right now, so just going to write them all down here. Arthur and McComas, Sullivan and Cumberland, Villa Grove, Sangamon Valley, okay. All right, so Arthur wins 43-20. Okay. So 56 games left on the board. Cross off those. All right, so on to the Lincoln Prairie Large. Okay, need a Farmington Rovas score. Okay. So on to the Lincoln Trail Prairie Land Small. All right, need a bunch of these. Astoria, Monmouth United. Havana, Abingdon Avon. Rushville, Stark County. Excellent, thank you guys. That one stings for Havana. Keeping an eye on them as a possible playoff team. That one really hurts. Okay. Carolina. I'm only kidding about the baseball game not being over by the time I finish these scores. They're still playing. 14th inning. Okay, I need a Casey Westfield Mount Carmel score. Officially at 50 scores needed. One from the mid-suburban west. Palatine and Hoffman Estates. Okay. That one. Okay, on to the northwest upstate line. Okay, I need a Stockton score. Against DPC. Dakota and Morrison. And Fulton, Hazel Green, Southwestern out of Wisconsin. So, the need list is Carlisle and Sparta, South Shore and Hyde Park, Crane and Roe Clark, Althoff, Blues Mater Dei, Fieldcrest and Ridgeview, Sullivan and Cumberland, Palatine Hoffman Estates, Stockton, just got that one, Morrison wins 48-16, Okay, and Fulton 56.40. Thank you much. I'll close in real quick. Okay. On to the Sangamo. He's over Pittsfield. It's 27-14. Williamsville, New Berlin, 53-7. So who's got an Auburn Riverton score for me? $6.33 for Riverton. All right. Okay, on to the second Mississippi. I did get that Valentine final. Thank you. Janesville, 48-13. West Frankfurt must be tomorrow, and I didn't have that right. There it is. Rodewald or Massey. Okay. So Harrisburg and Murfreesboro is missing. Thank you. South Central Conference. Another Staunton, 56, 21. 1 One, 22 over Gillespie. Okay. All right, on to the South 7. Thank you. 40 to 8. All right. And Southwestern. Okay, looking for Alton and Belleville West. Sir. Okay, Three Rivers, Mississippi. Sherrard, 52-7. Princeton, 48-10 over Angola. Okay. Three Rivers Rock. For Backridge at New Mexico County. I need an Erie Prophetstown score tonight. $40. Thank you much. Okay. Getting down to the nitty gritty here. Missing list. I'll run through them again. South Shore and Hyde Park, Noble Row, Clark and Crane, Sparta and Carlisle, Ridgeview and Fieldcrest, Belleville, Altoff and Breeze Mater Dei, Cumberland and Sullivan, and that's where we're at right now. Yeah, some teams, Brian, you mentioned the Lincoln Way East game being played on Thursday in Week 9. I've noticed recently, in recent seasons, there are quite a few teams that are wrapping up the season in regular season games on that final Thursday. That's I don't want to say it's coming common, but it's becoming more normal that that's been happening. So thank you for the Fieldcrest Ridgeview score. And now I'm going to go try to find the one it is, 48-20. So I got the main Valley score that I need. On to the Western Big 6. Althoff 58-35. Thank you. Cumberland Southern was Saturday. Okay. That makes more sense because I couldn't find it. Alright. So, already beat me to the list there. Sterling. East Moline, 48-21. And Tennessee 44, Galesburg 22. Alright. So, now moving to the Western Illinois Valley. That's Central wins 46-3. Offense phase. And 66 on over the now. Okay. So I had a little bit north. And to the south. Sparta 41-8 over Carlisle. Thank you very much. That one was what I remember. Okay. All right. 15 games to go. Okay, and you got Greenfield, West Central score. Greenfield 36-30. You're asking, would the IHSA ever expand the playoffs by one round? I think in the very near future, and there's actually going to probably be news coming out about this within the next week, there's going to be a couple of proposals on the table to expand the playoff field to classes of 48 teams per class. So I believe that number is 396 teams would qualify for the playoffs. The top 16 teams in each class would get a bye. And I think there are actually two different proposals coming out with that information this week. So there will be more information coming out about that in the very near future. Those are proposals that will be submitted to all the member schools in the state to discuss whether or not that's something that they want to do. So, like I said, I believe that information is going to be coming out this week. Or at least information about those policies, not whether or not they're going to be accepted. That's something that's going to take a few months to sort out. Norton, 31-22. 32. Go south, 29, 27 over Kingsville south. Okay. Yeah, me too, but the 1 to 32 is something that I would really like in the smaller classes as well. I really wish we'd go back to that, but for some reason that seems to be a non-starter whenever we're talking about these new policies. Okay. That seemed to be the reason why we were told that that wasn't going to happen. I personally don't really see the point to 5 and 6 being the way that they are. They are right now, because 1 to 32 is only classes 7 and 8, yes. But even in the 5 and 6A classes, you have so many schools that are traveling significant distances just to keep the north and south brackets. So I feel like we're specifically penalizing a few schools in that system that constantly have to make those long trips when, you know, it's be just the same if you went to 1 to 32. There'd be 6 or 7 bad trips per round. It just would be equitable for who is making those trips. Like it feels like every year, for example, Crete Moni has to make like a 3-hour trip in the first round of playoffs. That was 1 to 32, at least the odds of them not having to do it every single year would be different. Okay, Rockford, Jefferson, and Belvedere. Okay. Jefferson 27-12. Thank you, sir. All right, so just a few more to put in here. I do. Hang on a second, I'll give it to you. Yeah, it's kind of the same thing. Mountain 66, East Peoria 32. One of these years, I wonder if East Peoria is going to stop starting 4-0 and get that 5th win. Last 3 in a row again this year. Okay, keeping it's Canton 30-20. Okay, so scores I'm missing are Hyde Park and South Shore, Noble, Rowe, Clark, and Crane. That is it for Friday night scores. both in the public league. All right, let's do some fun with numbers before we shut her down. Okay. 33 teams in the state of Illinois are undefeated. That number is really, really low. However, there are 5 more teams that can join them tomorrow. The reason I didn't have a Belvedere North Sport League is that game's tomorrow, Saturday at noon. So 5 more teams tomorrow can join that group. So we could get that up to 37. Peyton Good, Lincoln Way West, Belvedere North, and Benton. Yeah, so let's look at that real quick. 33, 38. So 38 undefeated teams potentially in the state of Illinois. 33 have already gotten there. That number's pretty low, guys, with 2 weeks left. We've got 60 teams at 6-1. I think there are a handful of teams that can join them tomorrow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more. So 67 at 6-1 potentially. And there's a very large group of teams at 5 wins right now. But above 500 teams, here's an interesting factoid for everybody. Above 500 teams right now, 253 of them. So what does that mean? It means that we've got a large group of teams at 4 and 3 that have to split the remaining 2 games to stay at 5 wins. But then we've got a real big group of teams at 3 and 4. The only way they can get to 5 is by winning both of their games. So my initial snap on that would be we are going to have I feel like we're still going to have a need for 4 and 5 teams in the playoffs. So I had a request to look at 4A. Some of this is tricky because one of the teams that I'm missing here is South Shore. But I'm looking at the results of tonight, and honestly, I haven't seen much. I'm running down the list real quick, doing a mental shift. So, this is going to change. We're going to go up. So what I'm doing right now is I'm going through tonight's games mentally and looking through them all to see if everything agreed with what happened tonight. And in some cases it did not. So I'm just changing some things around based on that. Okay. So what I just did right there was make some changes. The bubbles may change, but I mean, this is just a real rough cut right now, guys, because I don't have the bandwidth to go through the whole thing and figure out how this is simply presuming that the same 32 teams are going to be in 4A that was last week. That's not a safe bet, but it's also not crazy to think that way. So, I know what you're looking for specifically, rather, is the North bracket. So, I'm going to try to give you a little bit of a taste right there. So, right now, I would say Geneseo's win tonight is making this a little bit more stacked in a different way than they were before. So right now I'm looking at it, and I've got Morris on the top, Montini at the 2 seed, Dixon 3, Cole City 4, Geneseo 5, Metamoris 6, Marengo 7, Peoria Notre Dame 8. They moved up significantly because of that win tonight over Bloomington. Teams that moved down, Sterling, after their loss to Geneseo. Geneseo moved up quite a bit. Excuse me, that's not right. Geneseo is not in the correct position. So I'm going to restack that for you. Morris, Montini, Dixon, Coal City, Metamora, Marengo, Peoria, Notre Dame, Geneseo are your top 8 seeds. The bottom changes around with Sterling dropping down, and Rochelle actually will move up. I do not have that right. Rochelle's going to move up quite a bit, actually. Rochelle's going to go into the 8th spot. So that is what that one looks like. Just kind of a rough cut. Like I said, these bubbles may change, but that is what that looks like right now, just based on last week's projections. Now, the South still looks like Carterville is going to be your only undefeated team, and then Rochester in the 2-seed hole. But some of these other teams are going to change around near the bottom. Some of them are going to change at the top. But most consistently, I think that top hold is going to sit pretty much the way it is, the way that I have it, at least in this week's projections. Looking around at some other things, just around. Just a snap judgment looking at 8A. Some of the things that happened tonight that are going to change this bracket pretty significantly. Loyola's lost to Providence. We moved them down the seed chart last week. They were at a 20. I think that loss is going to move them down probably somewhere in the 26, 27, 28 range. So that's interesting for them. Joliet West will be removed from the field. They lost this evening to Plainfield East, and they will not. They were in the driver's seat to win a conference championship. That loss actually moves them off of that and puts them in a situation where Plainfield East is now in the driver's seat to win that conference. And so that changes that. We're looking around the rest of the bracket. I believe Sandburg is going to fall some seeds based on their loss to Lockport this evening. Oswego is going to fall due to its loss to Manuka. So that's going to change the top 5 seeds in that classification. Friend, another team falling out of that top. So right now, potentially there will be only 2 9-0 teams in 8A. Mount Carmel and Lincoln Way East. Moving up the poll a little bit farther is Maine South. Whitney Young looks like a potential top 5 seed, along with Warren after tonight's win against Stevenson. Barrington will also move up significantly. Actually, Barrington's going to rocket up to what looks like the number 3 seed position after their win over Friend tonight. So a big move there for them in 8A. Let's take a look at 7A real quick. What happened here? So just looking at the results from tonight, once again, all these are speculating based that the breaks will stay the same. I don't expect huge break changes, but there will be some new teams, and that may cause a team on the bubble to move around. Biggest moves in 7A, St. Charles North will be moving down after the loss. Lincoln Way West plays tomorrow, so we don't know what's going on there. Other than that, I don't see a lot going on here in regards to 7A. The games tonight went pretty much the way that I thought. Another team that's going to be moving up is Downers Grove North after their win over York tonight with the return of Owen Lansu. That will be a substantial move up. That'll move Downers Grove North up at least 7 or 8 spots, in my opinion. So another team that might be falling out is Schaumburg. That's potentially the spot that Glenbard North will take now in the field after they kind of broke into there. So that's what's going on there. So 6A, let's take a quick peek at that. Based on tonight, Dunlap also fell. So the potential for 6A to have no 9-0 teams still exists because of the fact that Glenwood is so close to that line between 5 and 6. They are the only team on target to get to 9-0. Everyone else has lost at least one, or expected to, or have already lost one game. Let's see, everybody else in this class, pretty much held serve, did what they were supposed to do. Mather out of the Chicago Public League is going to fall after a loss this week. Geneva is another team that's going to fall down a little bit. And Plainfield East's situation will improve a little bit. Also improving Wheaton Warrenville South after their win over St. Charles North tonight. Let's take a peek at 5A while we're at it. 5A, so far Canelan will be dropping down, so will Bloomington. Move ups, Washington will be moving up. Let's see, Marion will be moving down. Wheaton Academy will be moving down. Providence will be moving up substantially in the bracket. That's really all that I see. If you're still here, Dante, after looking at this a little bit more carefully, I really like Springfield to stay in 5A. Talked about 4A a little bit. Let's go to 3A for a little overview. Let's see, tonight, nothing really happened at the top. Oregon lost, so they'll be moving down. Bishop McNamara won, they'll be moving up, and they will be moving up into a very high seed. Seattle finally wins the game in 15 innings. 3-2 over the Tigers. Antino will be moving up slightly. Stillman Valley will be moving up slightly. Oregon will be sliding down. Looks like the South is pretty consistent. Robinson will probably be removed from the field after their loss tonight. 2A. Interestingly enough, Maroa, the only team out of the glom of teams that are projected to go 9-0, was a loser tonight. Other than that, very little different than what originally was impressed upon heading into the week. Honestly, I'm not really seeing anything other than Maroa moving down that will be substantially different. 1A. I think this is fairly self-explanatory as well. 6 teams at the top, all won. People lost, but I had that projected. That's it. Hayworth will be sliding down. Gibson City will be sliding down. I think that's pretty much it. So, all right, well, that's a quick summary of what happened tonight. You're asking about Bishop McNamara, Class 3A North. I can see what I can do here. Bishop McNamara end up in 4A North and shake up the north end of that bracket. They certainly could. Right now they're currently on the bracket top. No, Lewin is not still unbeaten. They lost to Stockton a few weeks ago, so that is their lone loss of the season at this point. So McNamara could shake up the 4A North bracket considerably if they ended up in 4A. They are right on the bubble right now. You wanted 3A North. Let me take a look at that. So right now, I would say we're just going to do some bouncing around here real quick. Okay, so there was a little bit of movement with some of the teams at the bottom half of this bracket. Bishop McNamara needs to go up. So this looks like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 situation of Richmond Burton on the top. Byron in the 2 spot, Hope Academy in the 3, but that is pivotal with the Bishop McNamara game next week. That could change. Bloomington Central Catholic with the 3, Hope Academy with the 4, Bishop McNamara with the 5, Noble Rauner with the 6, Aurora Central Catholic with the 7. The interesting thing about this bracket is, 1, IC Catholic slotted into the 11th seed. There's not a single projected 5 and 4 team right now in the north half of the bracket in 3A. Everyone is 6 and 3 or better. So 6 and 3 does not help you get towards a home game because there are multiple 6 and 3 teams, but no 5 and 4 teams to help push them up the seed chart. So that's the most interesting thing about the 3A bracket right now, as long as it holds. So, all right, guys. Well, I think that is that's going to wrap us up for tonight, and we'll definitely do more diving in next week as we get to the point where we know exactly what is left on the calendar and what the likelihood is how these teams are going to finish. So everybody have a good night. Thanks for joining us.